So I guess we'll start. So
All
if you
right.
want to tell everyone who you are and what it is you do.
Well, let's see. My name is Bill Schack. I'm the food service director at Tallahassee's homeless shelter, the Kearney Center. And I've been there for 5 years. Been in the restaurant business about 30 years. Been in Tallahassee since about 1985 when I came to school here as a 17-year-old from New Jersey. And been in the restaurant business my whole life, so I moved around a lot. And in 2018, I decided to run for city commissioner. I was tired of seeing what our city was doing and how they were in the paper for the wrong reasons, our city officials. And I ran in 2018, learned a lot, decided to run again in 2020. So I'm officially a city commission candidate for 2020.
All right. That's a lot of history in 5 minutes, probably.
Yeah.
So 85, 17, coming to Tallahassee for high school?
For college.
For college at 17?
Yeah, from New Jersey. Didn't know anybody. Came with my twin sister. We came to FSU together. And
what was Tallahassee like? What did you do back then for Florida State in 1985? What was hot?
I joined a fraternity right away. So I took one semester in school, and then I joined a fraternity and was very actively involved in it, and enjoyed every minute of my college experience, and got to work my last year in college. I worked for Applebee's restaurant, and there I've started my restaurant career right there.
So what was the education from Florida State?
I graduated with a marketing degree.
Okay.
I'm a couple of credits away from a minor in computer science, I guess, but never wanted to fulfill that. But I loved using my marketing degree in the restaurant business. I'm a big promoter type guy. I love representing a company or an organization, and we'll go all out to do those types of things.
Right.
I'm the kind of guy that will bring a truckload of sand and dump it on a patio of a restaurant to promote a beach party. So the cleanup ain't so good, but
right.
That's kind of where I am. I'm over the top sometimes on a lot of things I like to do.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording about social media. You mentioned marketing, and I found out a while ago, I used to, when I first joined Facebook, I would put up my thoughts and feelings on there and what was going on. And I was like, and then I was kind of like, man, nothing really happens. There's not a whole lot of interaction. And then I went through a crazy time in my life and started using Instagram, which I thought I'd never use. I was like, man, I'm a grown man. Like, what am I going to be doing? And I ended up kind of having fun with it. And like I said, all these ideas started coming to me and things I was coming up with. And then I realized, I said, oh, social media is the tool. And if not, then you're the tool. That was sort of just like my little joke. Like, if you don't use social media as a tool, then you're probably the tool.
Well, I love it. I think social media is a great way to build a brand. When you're working somewhere and you're say the general manager of a restaurant, you want to promote your restaurant or an event going on there, you can get on social media and promote it. You can go Facebook Live and show a party or an event. And certainly when you run for a political office, that's the way to build your brand. And I've really used it over the past 5 years to build my brand. I've been leading up to running for office for many, many years. People who've known me in my restaurant days 20 years ago heard me talk about running for office. I just think that's the next step in my evolution as a leader. So
yeah, that's where we actually met. Was at the restaurant at the Applebee's back in the day. I think it was like 2005 or 6, somewhere around there. You were managing at the time, and so you're in the restaurant business now. Now you go to the Kearney Center. That's your income now,
right?
And I worked a lot. I worked for 3 years at the psychiatric hospital, and we do a lot with the Kearney Center with the homeless population. We have different programs. There's the FACT program, which places people with, different mental disorders and things that, challenges that they face. We sort of help them get back in the community, which is sort of kind of opened my eyes to a lot more of like the political side of stuff, which I didn't think it would. But then I started realizing, I was like, oh, there's a lot going on here that, isn't being shown. And, especially with the homeless population and with mental health and stuff like that. And was that your experience with the Kearney Center? Like, is that how you started to realize, other than, some newspaper headlines.
Well, I've been involved.
Like what sort of got you to be like, man, I think I have the ideas and, I see some holes here.
Well, I've been involved in nonprofits for 20 years. I've been part of Special Olympics for almost 18 years now. I ran a charity for the intellectually disabled for 2 years and was on the board of one for about 8 years. And I just kept seeing people that needed help, and it didn't seem like they were getting a lot of help. When I ran the charity for intellectually disabled people, I was part of that group that had to go in front of the commission and beg for money, as if we had to make sure that little piece of pie that they put in their budget, that our organization's worthy of the little piece that they give us. And a lot of these organizations fill and serve city problems. And that's where it comes to the Kearney Center. I've been there 5 years, and I see firsthand how mental illness is a major issue in this community. Yet the only time it seems to be talked about is during election season by the people running for office, how they're going to fix it, how they're going to put more money into it, how they're going to build buildings and solve issues. And the bottom line is they don't.
Right.
And from what you saw personally, you saw that it's just not that easy. And the Kearney Center has now become a place where we do have quite a few people there who have a mental illness. Right.
But to me, between that and obviously the drugs, there's even if that's alcohol, when you do nursing and you learn about alcohol and its toxic abilities and stuff. And, that there are people who, I watch people go from, because they couldn't get alcohol. Well, now they're drinking Scope. Now they're drinking, hand sanitizer. Now they're drinking stuff out of the cleaning bucket.
Wow.
And there's also that too. And a lot of addiction, a lot of the, I think research is showing that it has to do with your environment. A lot of the addiction issues, when you're unhappy with your environment and you can't change that, so what do you do physically? They free their mind, quote unquote, typically it's not the best way. It's not, it's not healthy. It's not good. Right. So, and that just sort of adds into the problem, where we have these issues of how do we help these people? So what do you see? Like, do you have any, cause I'll be honest. I had to look up what a city commissioner did.
Right.
I'm not the biggest political guy in the world. I focus a lot on science and health and nutrition stuff. And I tend to sort of stay out of politics just cause it's such a huge, vast area. And I don't feel like my opinion, and something I don't understand, I really shouldn't be throwing my hat in the ring. So I looked it up. It looks like you guys mainly kind of structure laws that have to do with the city, like ordinances and stuff like that. And, maybe funding, but is that sort of,
it is sort of what I understand it to be.
You work with the mayor, right?
The mayor's a commissioner,
Right. Yeah.
The mayor's just one of five. He doesn't have a bigger vote than anybody else.
Right. I saw in Tallahassee, it's called a non-power mayor or something, I can't remember what it was, but he doesn't have the power to veto, and his vote's the same as everybody, like you were saying.
Right. His vote's the same as anyone else's, and they go by recommendations from the staff, the city staff, and the city manager, and the really has a lot of the power here in the city. And we've had our issues with city managers in the past, and what happens is, my opinion, and the reason I got into politics in the first place in Tallahassee is because I saw how the last city manager just basically decided his own fate. No one on the city commission stood up and said, "Hey, you're doing something wrong, and you need to be punished for it, or he needs to be fired." They let him decide when he was going to retire. And I think that's wrong. I think people have to have leaders who are going to hold people accountable. But getting back to your question about what I see at the Kearney Center, and what's next, one of the reasons I ran for commissioner as well is because we have almost a $900 million budget. And yet we can't seem to find money for organizations that are actually impacting people's lives every single day, like the Kearney Center. A lot of people don't realize that the Kearney Center is 95% privately funded. We have very little involvement with the city. And yet the city wants to talk about the Kearney Center when there's something good going on, but they also want to talk about it when there's something bad going on. And I think if the city could be more of a partner with with the homeless shelter, we'd have we'd have some better outcomes. I personally believe that we'd have some better outcomes. But the work that goes on inside that building is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. The problem is we don't have enough workers in that building to really reach people like case managers because we don't get enough funding. Right. And I think that there are organizations out in this community that do really great work, but they don't get enough funding. Right. Take, for instance, the Tempo program that the city loves to talk about. It has like 100% success rate. Well, why are we dumping in millions of dollars to this program and reaching thousands more kids instead of just 1,000 kids? Mm-hmm.
Go into a little more about that. What is so? What is you said the Tempo?
Yeah, it's a program that helps at-risk youth and kids that get in trouble, and they try to put them on the right path and get them jobs. And the city loves to talk about it. They'll talk about it almost at every commission meeting, every retreat. It's a big deal. Mm-hmm. They're going to get a building. I personally think they should house it right there at the Kearney Center, and maybe use it as to show these kids that come in there, this is what can happen if you don't get your act together. Right. But those are difficult steps. Those are tough things to say. And I think in this community, we need some leaders that are not afraid to talk about some of the tough things and the tough issues. We tend to hide the tough issues. Mm-hmm. And I call it passing a lot of feel-good policies like scooters and the things that really feel good, but they're really not smart decisions. I think we need to be a little bit smarter. How can you allow scooters all over Tallahassee when the universities don't even want them? Right. Why would you continue that? Now, there's a reason why the universities don't want them on their campuses. So let's find out why and work with them. And then if the university is on board, then we can have a program like that. Those are the kinds of things that frustrate me as just a citizen that make me go, let me throw my hat in the ring. I'm very opinionated. I have a lot of opinions about things. But I also have a lot of common sense, and I think we should use some of that, especially in the city that has a $900 million budget. When you add the city budget, the capital outlay budget, and the county budget, we have a bigger budget than Tampa, Florida. I mean, that is just shocking if you think about that. And we can't get things done. We need to have Wi-Fi buses pull up in neighborhoods so kids can go to virtual school. We got to raise money to get laptops for kids. I mean, we have 14,000 kids that are hungry because school's out. I mean, those are things that are happening in our community, and they're shocking. I think this whole health crisis that's going on right now has opened the eyes, hopefully, to some people to go, you know what, we got some serious issues in this community, and we need to address them. I think this COVID thing and shutting down the community and closing schools has hopefully opened people's eyes to some of the issues that we have. So,
yeah, I definitely think from my perspective, and I've talked about it before with some other people and I guess mine's probably more of a bigger scope of issues. But to me, the medical industry and the education system are both really flawed. And so when you look at it, so if we just take education, for example, in Tallahassee, well, that's the youth, that's a lot of kids. So, if we get funding and start working on our education program, to me, that's where I see some issues. Mm-hmm. And as far as, like you said, like working with kids and keeping them on the right direction. But personally, when I was in school, like I didn't fit the mold for what our school system is set up to be, all these different classes throughout the day. And that's why I didn't want to go to school. I definitely would have, gone off the track in high school if I probably wasn't in a super conservative Christian family. But, it's just, to me, it was those things that even like here that the Warriors trying to do with working with kids, because, these music programs are getting cut and these other things are getting cut. And you go, wait, well, what, are you saying there's only one way? We're just going to drill statistics into kids and, that doesn't make sense.
I think we're our own worst enemies sometimes. My daughter went to high school and, and took gym class. Gym class consisted of sitting on a bench by the basketball court. I mean, there is no gym class. Right. And then we wonder why kids get obese and kids don't get exercise, when they have health issues down the road. The crime issues we have in our community, the latest crimes, the gun
there's
robbery.
So many kids.
These are 14, 15-year-old kids committing crimes. And I would argue that if we would put a program back in the elementary schools, like a DARE program, And everybody says, oh, Dare was a failure. Well, there's a lot more things going on in kids' lives today than just drugs, bullying, the internet, all these other things, mental health. We should have a program back in schools that teach kids and keep them aware of some of the dangers out there. And it gets put in their head every single day by police so that they don't think the police are the bad guys. Right now, a lot of youth think the police are the bad guys. Right. And we got to change that mindset. And that's going to take a much more leadership than just one city commissioner. It's going to take the entire community. Right. But I think it starts there. I think it starts in elementary school. It starts with getting into our kids and helping them. You know, a lot of these kids come from troubled homes and they get their safety is school. And now you got kids out of school right now that are hungry, that are in difficult situations. You know, so it's going to take a lot more than that. But hopefully, we'll learn from what's going on right now, and we'll come more together as a community and do a lot more things to change it. And I think you're right. It does start at school. It starts young, and but I think there are ways to do that, and I think we've kind of gotten away from that right now. Right, and of course, the other thing that I think about as a kid growing up, which you know, I have kids, but not here, so. But I hear parents talk about like after school, like city funded or city sponsored sporting events. Like when I was a kid, you know, it was almost free basically. I don't really, maybe there's like a $10 fee or something to sign up or whatever. And I hear parents talk about now, okay, well, equipment costs this much and, you know, it costs this much to register and they want, you know, all these different fees. And I'm like, well, you know, I guess sort of, I haven't been up on the game as far as city sponsored or talked about sports. It's very expensive to play sports in this community, and a lot of kids don't get a chance to do it because parents can't afford it. You know, these baseball teams. You know, I'm umpiring baseball. I have no kid playing baseball. I just thought it would be kind of fun to be an umpire, so I became an umpire last year, and I actually did the last game before the COVID shut down all the parks. I actually did the last game, but I enjoy it. But you talk to these parents, and it's a very expensive program to be part of that. And but yeah, when you hear that schools don't, you know, parents have to pay so much money to have a kid play sports or cheerlead, it's hundreds of dollars. And but. So, I mean, am I wrong? Like, because when I was a kid, I feel like that was I don't remember almost parents having to pay. You're right. $5, you know. Yet again, we talk about common sense. Our school board made the decision to give employees, administrative employees, a $400,000 raise. Yet we got to tell our parents that their kids our schools can't afford to buy them equipment for sports. I mean, those are just terrible decisions. And, you know, until we stop doing those kinds of things, I don't know that we'll ever get back to free music and free sports for kids. But, you know, I think the healthcare system, I think kids getting obese and kids being out of shape and kids having terrible diets, all that stuff leads to some of these symptoms that a virus like this has affected a lot of people because they have underlying conditions. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, no, there's never been a time before where children like had chronic diseases like they do in a first world country that advances in science and medicine. Sure. But our kids under 15 are like more unhealthy basically than they've ever been. And then you go, well, they're supposed to be our leaders, you know, it's a little worrying. Again, it starts in elementary school. I think we need to get back to getting kids to be active and getting kids to respect elders. I mean, a lot of kids today, they just don't respect the police. They don't respect law enforcement. They don't respect parents. They don't respect their teachers. You know, and that's because 70% of the homes, a lot of kids, if it's that figure, are fatherless. They come from broken homes. They don't have that discipline, and I think kids need that. They need that discipline. They need, you know, these robberies, these past couple of robberies, 13, 14-year-old kids. Where are the parents when these kids are out committing crimes? I mean, but those are the tough conversations nobody wants to have.
Right.
Nobody wants to have those conversations. Somebody wants to say, that's the reason. They want to blame it on something else. And truly, it's because parents aren't around to make sure kids are on the straight and narrow.
So then what do you do as a city commissioner? You come in, do you present ideas? Do you sort of lobby for, hey, I've got this proposal for this law to help,
well, one of the things is,
do people come to you?
I know from experience in the nonprofit world that there are lots of organizations that will help families from childhood all the way to adulthood and even past that. And there's a lot of them in Tallahassee. I call it Tallahassee's huge heart. I talk about it all the time. There's so many great leaders of so many great organizations in Tallahassee. I think one of the number one employers in Tallahassee are nonprofits. I mean, there's a lot of people that work for nonprofits, yet we always want to keep graduates and stuff here for all these science and technology type jobs. Well, guess what? Nonprofit jobs are pretty important too. And I think if those organizations had more money, and that's where a city commissioner comes in. Someone needs to fight for these organizations to get more funds so that they can reach more people. When a place like the Kearney Center loses $500,000 in funding and has to go from 8 case managers to 4, you're not reaching anybody. You're not reaching. Right. You're losing people. And if you had those eight people that you could afford to have, you could reach more people. And that's what happens in a lot of these organizations. They do such a great job, but they can't reach enough people because they don't have any funds. So a lot of these organizations, when the Kearney Center first got started, they were going to have someone on site at the Kearney Center to help every single day. Well, if you don't have the funding to put somebody in that place every day, you're not going to be able to do it. And yet they have to go in front of a commission every single year and beg for a little piece, $30,000 for their charity, $15,000, and even the Kearney Center has to beg for grant funding from the city. And we get very little. And a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, if it wasn't for Tallahassee's big heart and all the private funders, the Kearney Center would not be able to exist. And I think that's a shame because it really is a model for the country on how to house and treat the homeless population.
Right. Yeah. If you look
people
around,
come
that's
to Tallahassee,
huge right now.
People come to Tallahassee to see what this place is all about.
Right.
You know who don't come in it? City commissioners, county commissioners. The county commissioner whose district that place is in has never even been in that building, I think, but maybe once or twice. There's very few counties or city commissioners that come to visit that place. I could count on one hand how many times each one has been to the Kearney Center. So when they're talking about helping the homeless, it's all for show because the facts are they don't do it. And I'm a man, I know you follow me on Facebook, I'm a man of action. I'm not a man of promises. I'm not a man of talk. I'm a man who talks about action all the time. Saying you're going to help the homeless is great, but going and handing a homeless guy a sandwich and telling him there's a place for him if he needs some help, that's action.
Right.
Just saying you're going to help isn't action. And I believe we have a lot of people in our city that talk, but don't walk the walk. And that to me is really another reason why I ran for office. I'm just tired of people talking to talk and not walking the walk. And I'm someone who walks the walk. I've done it my whole life. I have employees that I've fired that 20 years later say, man, you were the best boss I ever had. Because I treat people with respect. I treat vendors with respect. I treat everybody with respect. And I just want to see people get a fair shot. And I think a lot, especially what I see at the Kearney Center, I let people come to volunteer in my kitchen and I don't pay them anything. My pay is that I will be their advocate when they're ready to get a job. A lot of these people that work for me at the Kearney Center in the kitchen, they just need a break. They need to use the Kearney Center to get some services and get their ID and get their social security card and get some of the things they need to get a job. And then they need someone to give them a break. And that's the big part.
So basically what you're saying is skills.
Yeah, they're going to learn a skill in our kitchen, but then they need a break by somebody to give them a job.
Right. Say, hey, this guy worked for me.
They're not going to call a corporate restaurant.
Right.
And pass a 10-year background check. A lot of these guys are just not going to do that. Right. But they can call a single family owned place like the Warrior and say, hey, if they get a call from me first, it says, hey, I know a guy. You need somebody? This guy really has busted his butt for me for 6 months. Now he needs a job. He's got his ID. He's got his social security card. He's got some skills. If you need them, and that's what I try to do now. I try to get these guys some jobs, but it's really difficult. I've been there 5 years. I've probably placed 5 people because if I start putting my name on every single person that says, hey, I want to work and not see somebody prove it to me, then no one's going to want to listen.
Right.
I do have, Matt Thompson of Madison Social is great. He's probably my biggest job supporter, if you will. He's hired a few people. Some work out, some don't. But at least he's willing to take that chance. And that's what we need in Tallahassee. Talk about people coming out of jail. They have no opportunity. They really have a tough time finding a job because nobody wants to take that risk.
Right.
But you know what? People need to get a chance. People need a break. And again, there's lots of organizations that will help you get that break. I'm not getting you the job, but I'll get the door open for you. Mm-hmm. And I'll be your advocate if you're worthy. Mm-hmm. The rest is up to you. And but I think that part is where we need to kind of figure out a way to work with the business community and say, you know what? There's a lot of people in this community that need work, especially after this is over. Mm-hmm. After this COVID thing is over, there's going to be a lot of people needing work. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are not going to want to go back to work. Right. Because the government's kind of going to give them a lot of money. Right. So until that runs out, they're going to feel like they don't have to go to work. But there are a lot of people that are like, I'm not going to do that. I want to work. I want to earn my keep. And I hope the business community will allow some of those people to get jobs. But it comes from people like myself who can give them a referral and say, hey, I know this guy personally. Right. He's a good guy. Yeah. Give him a shot. Hopefully they work out. Now, sometimes they don't. And that's unfortunate. But again, there's lots of organizations, that will help you. And I'd like to think I'm just one of those organizations that's willing to put my name on somebody and help them. Right. So.
Yeah. And like you said, like that was part of my problem or sort of the issue that I had is when you find someone that really wants help, that really want to change, okay, well, we got this place we can send you. Like I kind of felt bad sometimes because I always did feel like they were underfunded. Mm-hmm. The people that worked there weren't paid enough. Even the people that I worked with weren't paid enough, like, a lot of the social workers and stuff like that. And to me, like you said, getting funding to these places, these organizations, and where people want to help and want to work, and maybe they can, levy a job into something else or whatever it is they want to do. But sort of that giving back and working, mm-hmm. because I see it as like a snowball effect to me. Because I sort of, like I said, I didn't really fit the mold when I went through school, and I was sort of like, sort of pushed out by the wayside. I got my degree and, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and sort of eventually found my way in science and medicine and nursing and stuff. But to me, like even with less things to do for kids, I feel like that is even harder though, mm-hmm. because you're sort of saying, well, unless you get A's and you fit this mold of, science and, you can remember statistics and history and we can educate you, then, well, there's nothing really less you can do. You can try playing basketball, but it's going to cost X amount, or, we used to have some music programs, but, and to me, but then if kids don't have that place, then they maybe start doing crime. They commit crime, mm-hmm. they get into drugs, whatever it is. And then they end up homeless. And then, mm-hmm. like I said, it's a cycle, but mm-hmm. to me, it snowballs from, like you said, that education and from basically giving them something to do.
Well, it goes right back to what you said earlier. I mean, we're taking money from schools and taking programs away, mm-hmm. We had wood shop, we had mechanics, right? We worked on cars in school when we were in high school. There was a garage and you went and worked on cars, and you had wood shop and you worked on machines, until somebody cut their finger off, right? But anyway,
they took all these, what I do is considered a trade.
They took all these programs away. Think about this. I mean, radio, production, all that stuff, it can be done in schools. And it is, elementary schools do their own little news programs in the morning, but mm-hmm. then it stops and it ends and it doesn't go on anymore. Why not? Because we don't want to fund it. And that's a whole bigger federal issue with school funding. But when you see something like $400,000 from a school board go out to administrators who already made over $75,000 a year, I understand, that's even more insulting, especially during this particular time when that money could be used for something else. Those are decisions that I think are wrong. Those are decisions that somebody on the school board should have said, hold on a minute. I mean, there's how many school board members? Not one of them said, wait a minute, this just doesn't seem right. Mm-hmm. And on the city commission, the same thing happens. Nobody raises their hand on the current city commission and goes, hold on a minute, this just doesn't seem right. And if there is one that is always questioning something, it's Jeremy Matlow. But, and he's the new guy in a way. But he, questions things, and a lot of people don't. And I think that's healthy. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think you should have 5-0 votes every single time. And they do have a lot of 5-0 votes on that city commission for the past 2 years. And again, I think that's wrong. Not that I would be adversarial being on the commission. I just think I would be one that would answer some questions. They helped approve that Washington Square project that had big cranes swinging in the breeze for 3 months with no work going on. Now they took the cranes down. They don't know what they're going to do with that. Someone's going to come in and build that thing, but somebody didn't ask the right questions.
Right.
And we didn't know all the details before we signed off on that. And I think those are the types of things we need to have somebody do. Get in there and answer, ask the right questions so something like this doesn't happen, because somebody should have known the answer to that easement problem. Anyway, I'm not in the room for that, so I don't know exactly what went on, but I think somebody missed something for sure. But it goes right back to what you were talking about. We can fix a lot of the things that we're doing, and I really think it starts in schools. And that it's a shame that they're taking away all these trades and all these things. Yeah, the city of Tallahassee has programs all over the place that they love to talk about. Leon Works, but it's a program that you need people who are going to be involved in it. What a captive audience you have at the Kearney Center, say. Why doesn't Leon Works partner with, the Kearney Center? You have a captive audience of people who are there. Let's require them to go through some sort of job training. Let's require them to do some sort of volunteer work in the community.
Right.
That would be a great thing. But they'd have to partner with us. They'd have to do something. I don't know if that's something that can happen, but those are the conversations we need to have. There's lots of programs out there that can help people. Tallahassee has one of the zip codes is the poorest zip code in the entire state of Florida. Isn't that embarrassing? Shouldn't city commissioners be embarrassed that we have the poorest zip code in the state? But what are we doing to fix it? We're really not doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
So we're nationally known as having areas of town and having economic segregation of 47% or some outrageous number like that. Why are we electing the same city commissioners? That's another reason why I'm running. Something has to change, and the only way we're going to get change is if you elect somebody new. And the city of Tallahassee just doesn't tend to do that. And hopefully this year they will. So we'll see what happens.
So it's sort of a side question real quick, step off. I heard you mention something about, redirecting funds, away from school administrators. What about as far as teachers and pay? Excuse me.
Look,
because I know they did the thing at the Capitol, marched, I think, for teacher awareness for pay. And so you're mostly, I think, talking about administrators.
Well, that was where that money went. That was something that the money went to administrators. But, as many parents are learning right now, teaching is very tough.
Yeah.
And, being around those kids all day is very tough. So, but everybody knows teachers are underpaid. Right. But it's more than that. It's not that they're just underpaid. They're disrespected. And I think that's the worst to me, is the disrespect that teachers get.
Yeah, no, I got spanked in school.
Huh?
I got spanked in school. That was a thing. Yeah, for real, for sure.
So, but I think that's what we need to focus on, is get these kids to grow up respecting elders, respecting teachers, and respecting authority, and not be at the point where teachers are almost afraid to talk to a kid or change a grade or something, or say, pull up your pants. I mean, those kinds of things, I think, those are the things teachers shouldn't have to deal with.
Right.
Again, this is local stuff that I'm running for, but if I was on a federal type level, I'd be saying, what are the toughest careers that we can't seem to fill? Teachers, nurses, doctors, law enforcement, right? Nobody wants to be a police officer. How do you get those jobs filled? How do you get people to want to be one of those? You do it by something so simple, but it would be a federal thing or something more not really local. But you want to get more people to apply for those jobs? Get them free health care. That's who should get free health care. Anybody who goes in those fields, first responders, teachers, healthcare workers, give them all free health care. That's a huge chunk of money that that they wouldn't have to pay, and it would be worth going into that field. Right now, we have trouble getting people into those fields, but that's outside the box type thinking that nobody ever want to do, because they always want their own piece of the pie. And I think I'm not a politician, and I don't like politicians because they always want something for themselves. What is it for me? You got politicians in Washington not even coming to Washington to work yet. We're paying them. Mm-hmm. We're paying House of Representatives to go to work, and they're not at work during this crisis. Right. And they're awarding $2.2 trillion packages from home. They're voting on them from home. I mean, that's shameful right there. So when your national leaders are doing things shady, all I can do is talk about the things that are happening local that I'd like to help fix. But we got serious issues in this country, and but I think. So
along those lines, is there any sort of, where does it go from city? If you get in city commissioner, is there, everything goes according to plan 4 years from now? Do you have a plan?
I do. I do. I've been wanting to get in politics my whole life, or for a very long time. And, I worked very hard to get to this spot and get in the arena, if you will, is what people say. I've chosen some really tough roads to go against incumbents both times. I mean, the incumbent dropped out in 2018, but I'm going against the incumbent again. He's got all the money. He's got all the insiders. He's got all the people. He's got all the but I'm out there in the community doing work every single day. And I'm hoping that this time people will realize, especially during this crisis, there's been a guy out doing stuff every single day to impact people's lives and changing their life and helping the community stay healthy. And that's been the work that we do at the Kearney Center. And I'm hoping that is enough. And my hopefully years of community service is going to get people to consider somebody new in that seat. And if I was lucky enough to win it, I do have plans to move on. I do have plans to do something different and bigger. I'd love to be a state senator or something like that. But it is very tough as somebody like me. I'm in a mostly Democratic city, and I'm a Republican. Mm-hmm. However, I don't believe my character and my experience and the things I do could put me in a box that a lot of people try and put you in. And that's been the toughest road for me, is that people put me in a box of, just because I have an R next to my name that I chose to be in when I was 18 years old, I all of a sudden get put in this box of every Republican that's ever said anything stupid or done anything dumb. And I think that's wrong. People should judge me on the things that I've done in my career, the people that I've helped. And that's hopefully where I'm at now in this race, is that people are going to respect what I've done throughout my career and helped so many people that they just might give me a shot, and I hope they do. So we'll see what happens.
Is there a typical path to city commissioner? Is there like some pre-political game you get in? Is it, are you,
unfortunately,
it's typical, or is it?
Unfortunately, from what history tells you, it's really money. Money drives everything. People want, the newspaper, people will think that you're a better candidate if you raise more money, whether you put it in there yourself or not. I could throw $100,000 into my campaign and people go, oh, the Bill Schack campaign must be serious because he's got $100,000 in it. Well, is it that it's serious, or is it that I put $100,000 in it? Now, I can raise $12,000 and still be a serious candidate, but it seems to me in this town that even the newspaper will think that you're serious or not based on how much money you raise. Mm-hmm. And the argument can be, if you're an incumbent and you've been engaged in all the city inside politics and all the big developers that give you thousands of dollars in donations, even though you can only accept $250, this is what happens. So all the relationships that have been built as you're an incumbent, you have all those people giving you checks from every address that they belong to, because they want you to stay in power. They want you to stay in office. They want you to continue to just work like the status quo. Well, I'm not that guy. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I won't work with these people. That doesn't mean I don't respect or even know how important these big developers are to our city. But what I'm not going to do is allow them to decide the decisions that I make and what I think is best for the people who live in our city. And and that's a problem. I mean, I could run, people have told me, you need to change parties, you need to become a Democrat. And I would never become a Democrat. That's just not who I am. I don't have a problem with anybody who's a Democrat. But I think a lot of Democrats have a problem with people who are Republicans. And I think that, and a lot of them live in the city. And that's a shame. So if you know me, really know me, then my political party shouldn't matter. If you really know me, I think you would know I'm the right person and the right fit for Tallahassee. I really do.
Well, I even think that's another probable and possible topic that people keep talking about, especially with the last two elections, where you go, I got who, and they have to be Democrat or Republican. Like, wait, are you kidding? This is all I got left?
Right.
Wait a second, so is there an emergence in new parties, the third party, the independent?
I think there might be nationally. I mean, I think there would be a good reason for a third party nationally. A lot of people who don't believe what a lot of Democrats do, and a lot of people don't believe what Republicans do or what they say. But I would argue, why does there even have to be a letter next to you?
Right. Yeah.
Why can't it just be Joe Smith versus Bob Jones?
Yeah,
why can't
I
it be
still
that?
I still don't understand that, because it's not black and white, which is what you're saying is what it is. When you're saying it's Democratic or Republican, you're saying it's black or white. It's abortion, it's yes or no. It's this, yes or no. It's this, yes. Well, no, it's not really.
Right.
Like when you think about it, well, maybe I'm yes on this, but I also kind of like this, where do I go?
Well, there seems to be a little appetite for that, because it just seems to be, again, the status quo, just the way it is, and Republican, left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. I'd love to see something different. I'd love for, even though the race that I'm in is nonpartisan, it becomes very partisan. The Tallahassee Democrat will make sure everybody knows I'm a Republican. All the big churches in Tallahassee will make sure that they know I'm a Republican. The big churches in Tallahassee will put flyers on all the cars right before the election, and they'll have it'll look like a ballot, and there'll be one name checked, and it won't be mine because I'm a Republican. I won't even be on the ballot. I want to be on that piece of paper because I'm a Republican. All they do is put the Democrats on. So even they make it partisan, but they don't know me. I've reached out to every pastor in this city over the past few years. A lot of them won't even return my call. So how is someone, especially someone in a faith community, not giving a shot or a chance to meet me and talk to me? So they're the ones that are the partisans. They have to live it themselves. So, all I can do is continue to do what I do. That's why, again, we go back to social media. I post everything I do. I post a lot of it. I want people to see what I'm doing. And it's not really because I need to get my things out there, because no one else is going to pump me up.
Right.
And sometimes unfairly, it's just because I'm a Republican.
Right.
And that's really unfair. So, but, I post a lot on social media, because if I can get one person to go, wow, I didn't know they do that at the Kearney Center, maybe I'll donate something.
Well, tell people your social media.
I'm on Facebook. I have at Bill Schack, I have a page on Facebook, Bill Schack for City Commission. I have a website, billschack.com. And I'm on Instagram, Schack Bill. I'm on Twitter, Schack Bill. And I don't use Twitter, Instagram that much. I do post once in a while, but Facebook's my main thing there. My wife says I post too much. She told me last night, I'm going to restrict you from posting. Just make one post a day. And it's hard for me to make one post a day.
Right.
And again, it's all about building a brand. The good news is in 2020 is that people know who I am. I don't have to build that brand anymore. What I need more than anything else is people to support me. Right. And that support me financially. I know I got people that'll vote for me, but I have to compete. I have to compete with an incumbent who's got a pretty big war chest. But the bottom line is, and what I'll tell people is that the past 2 months, I shut my campaign down. I've raised $0 the past 2 months. And my opponent cannot say that. He's been out aggressively collecting money. And so while I'm serving the people at the homeless shelter, he's worried about raising money. And I think that's the difference between him and me. Mm-hmm. He's a man of talk. I'm a man of action. So that's really what this race is all about. Do you want to elect an incumbent who's sat in between Scott Maddox and Mayor Gillum and says he didn't see anything? Or do you want to elect somebody brand new who has no connection to any of it? So that's what I'm hoping people will see.
And so you're looking for support, and that mostly goes to marketing, advertising, getting your name out. Like how do you get your message out? Like, because you can't really do it in like a 30-second ad. Or
I'm not going to reach the kind of reach that you can get like on TV or a mailer. I can't. When you're a little guy, you can't afford to send out. Some of these campaigns, you'll see 10 mailers come out in 3 days. You get 2 in the same day from the same candidate. I can't afford any of that. He can. Bigger, incumbents can. They have money that they can do those kinds of things. I can't. So again, it's another reason why social media is very important to me, is because I can afford that platform. I can afford to boost ads or videos or things like that, which I do. And it's very, very, very effective, and it's very inexpensive comparative to TV commercials. You're not going to see me on a TV commercial. You're not going to see me on a billboard. I can't afford those things. But I do have, political signs. Again, I just think social media makes somebody a lot more accessible. Right. You could reach me. You could send me a message. You could send me a note. Hey, what do you think of this? What's your opinion on this? And I welcome that stuff. Trust me. I've gotten more donations by sitting across the table like this and having a cup of coffee with someone, telling them about me and having them, and not even knowing me, but convincing them that I'm the right guy just by having a cup of coffee or things. I do have an idea of where we need to go, how we can be better as a community. But it takes someone just believing in someone. And I think if I meet you one-on-one, I could convince you I'm the right guy. So, but my website's got everything you could possibly want to know about me, my family, my work experience, my community service, my vision for Tallahassee. There's no candidate more willing to say he's proud to support the police than me. That's one of my big focal points is, now that we have a new chief, I was a big supporter of the new chief. Not many on the commission were. They were afterwards, and they all said they were, but they're all lying. When the city manager and the deputy city manager and all the commissioners get up in front of Chief Revel and say how they're proud to have this selection, they're lying because it's not true. They did not want him. And, when it all fell through, they had no other choice but to say that. And I think that's just so disingenuous to say that. And he knows it. But I'm not afraid to say that because it's the truth. And I'm not saying anything out of turn. I think that's the truth. The city manager said in a statement, Gilliam was my number one pick of the 3. So now all of a sudden, because that deal fell through, because of his poor decisions, he wants to say that Revel's his guy. And I just think that's so disingenuous. I thought it should cost him his job. I thought that fiasco with the police chief should have cost the city manager and the assistant city manager their job. But no one on the city commission has the, to hold people accountable for their actions. And, I'm hoping to bring something new to the.
But the people can take it into their hands.
Sure.
By voting you in.
Right. The people, hopefully, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would agree with me that they did Revel wrong. And a lot of people will say, no, Revel was a bad guy. But we made the right choice. I fully support the City of Tallahassee Police Department. I think they need all the tools and all the people they can get. We talk about cutting budgets. They can't find police officers. And bottom line is that Tallahassee is the size of, is a city that needs 400 and something officers and we have 300 and something. And we're never getting caught up. We're never caught up with how many officers we truly need for the city. And until we get there, and that takes the commission to help make that happen. So anyway.
I think that's the biggest shocking thing about Tallahassee now, because I grew up here. I was born and raised here. And I basically grew up on a sleepy side of town. It was low income. It wasn't, the best, but it wasn't, it was pretty sleepy. It was pretty quiet where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now the college has reached its fingers out in apartments around where my parents live now. And so it's grown up. But I mean, just the amount of crime that I've seen increase in Tallahassee. And like you said, the age is like, it's shocking, the age.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, we lived next door to my parents for a little while, took care of my grandmother, and my girlfriend ended up moving in with me. And so her car got stolen one night. I mean, just right out from the front, and it's one of the, you just go, man, like, I grew up in this neighborhood, like, what happened? And when we found the car in the neighborhood it was in, and, it was reported going down the street, driven by basically two kids, and they called it in saying, hey, there's these kids driving this car, reckless driving or something. And it had ended up getting wrecked. So they wrecked it into something, but we found it parked. Unfortunately, the windows were down and it was raining.
Oh no.
So, but yeah, I was like, and I think they ended up getting them because these same kids had been kind of doing the same things and breaking into cars and stealing them for joy rides or whatever. And that's the thing, is they were kids. Like, this isn't something I would have thought of. And the neighborhood it was found in, it was like a neighborhood. It didn't look low income. It looked like, people were fairly stable, had stable homes, stable incomes. But then I just go, like, do they just have nothing better to do? Like, now it's either you're online or you're, like I said, like, if you keep going back on, there's no programs.
Right. Well, it's amazing that in the last couple of months during this COVID thing, you don't really hear a lot about the crime. Are we to believe that there's no crime going on? Are we to believe that there's not much going on right now? We have a curfew. That's the only thing really different. Is the curfew helping? I don't know. But it seems something has to be, there's got to be something they could attribute to the low crime, unless they just don't care about reporting it anymore, because everyone's too interested in how many deaths there are, not the 99 point whatever survival rate this is happening. I'm all for being safe and protective, but it's time to get this city open. It's time to get the country open. It's time to get the, small business back to making their money. I think what this has done is taught people some things that we took for granted. How many people went to work when they were sick? How many people went to work when they, shouldn't have gone to work? And it's not just this virus, but any virus. You can catch any virus by going to work sick.
Right. Even when there's not a pandemic.
Right.
We worked in the restaurant. I work as a nurse, and I can tell you that nurses go to work sick.
Sure.
Because your boss is going to tell you, well, A, we don't have any other nurses. And B, well, you're a nurse, you know what to do to prevent the spread. And you go, well, I kind of know what to do, but at the end of the day, that doesn't prevent it 100%.
I used to say in the restaurant business, I'm sure you heard me say this back in the day, but I used to tell people, a self-inflicted illness is not a reason to call in sick, which I meant being hungover. But, if you were really sick, because in the restaurant business, you get a lot of calls from employees that say they're sick and they're really not. But, obviously in that business, I think restaurateurs will be a lot more cautious. So we'll see what happens. Excuse me.
Which there again goes back to funding for healthcare and calling out sick, and can we really take sick time? And when you're really sick, you need that time because even I as a nurse, I'm not rolling in dough for sure. I work as a nurse and I kind of make my own schedule, but typically the shifts I work them because I need to. I don't really work too many extra hours just for the fun of it, if you know what I mean.
Well, what'll happen is it'll force employers to
water. You need some water or something?
No, I'm good. Okay. What'll happen is it'll force employers to maybe add an extra couple of days of sick leave onto people so that they feel like they can take that day off and not lose some valuable time. A lot of people don't like to take their vacation time or their PTO time because they want to save it for a vacation, or a couple of vacations. Well, I think if we're going to require people and say, hey, look, if you're sick, really don't come to work. It's really important. Not just this pandemic, but any virus. then employers, I think, would be more than welcome to say, the other big thing that's going to come out of this is who's an essential worker and how important are they really? Mm-hmm. Are they so important that they're not worthy of a higher wage? So when your own politicians in Washington won't go to work for 177,000 years, but you expect your $8 an hour cook to show up every day. Those are some big questions that I think employers are going to have to ask too.
Well, I think that's a great segue into my next question. What do you think about the $15 an hour? And does that impact you much?
Well, it doesn't impact me at all, but I know it impacts small business a lot. And
as far as on a city level and your influence, and the commission, I think
whatever it is, $8.47, I think it is now. Whatever a wage is, it's going to make people not have to, that they can live on. I think that's what it needs to be. I think $15 an hour, you don't even have EMS workers making $15 an hour. So I think that's an outrageous figure. Mm-hmm. But I do believe $8.47, is not a good figure either. I think there has to be a wage that's fair. I think there is a wage that's fair. I don't run a business. I don't run a small business. So I don't really know. I've been out of running restaurants for 5 years where I have to make a payroll. Right. So I'm really not, I'm kind of away from that. So I really can't tell you, exactly what that figure needs to be, but I do think that it needs to change. And I think it needs to change to a point where this, the amount of work it takes to put another 15 cents onto someone's check in July 1st, and then on January 1st, you do another 20 cents. That's ridiculous. Let's just get to a figure and make it that, because these little increments that have happened over the past 10 years, it's kind of like a stamp, Yeah. Let's just make a stamp 50 cents and forget about it. Why do we keep raising it a penny, and then you have to change the printing of it and all these other things? Again, those are just common sense decisions that politicians make that are just stupid. It's kind of like mail delivery on a Saturday. We could save billions of dollars. Again, that's a whole nother issue. But if you can save billions of dollars, why do we need mail delivery on a Saturday? We should have gotten rid of that a long time ago. But those kinds of little things, those kind of things bother me a lot. But I think 15 is too much, unless you're gonna, if you're going to make minimum wage 15, what happens to the guy that already makes $18 an hour? Does his job become less important? So you're going to pay him 18, you're going to pay the brand new entry person 15. This guy making 18 is going to want, or will deserve 20 or 21 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to be a tough thing to do. Right. But what's wrong with going back to the way things were when you and I grew up? You got a job at McDonald's making minimum wage because that was your first job, and you worked hard to become a line supervisor, to get a raise, or work hard to get another job that has higher pay. Right now, no one wants to fight for that. No one wants to be the kind of person that gets a job, works their tail off to get another job that's going to pay more, to get another job that's going to pay more. They just expect to go get a job making $50 an hour, and I think that goes right back to what we were talking about. That's not the way you were brought up. Let's get in these schools and show kids that you work hard for what you make, mm-hmm. but what you make is endless. It can be whatever you want it to be. It depends on how hard you work. Right. And kids are not working hard when they're sitting on Instagram all day long, scrolling through pictures. Mm-hmm. And that starts in school. It really, again, I believe everything goes right back to elementary school and teaching our kids right and having parents that show them the right way. Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I feel like it's presented to them that there's only two paths. It's either educated or not. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, what if they don't fit into the what I feel is a broken education system? Mm-hmm. What if they don't fit into that? You're just telling them they're screwed.
And there's plenty of programs that'll help kids get jobs. But again, if we're really serious about getting these kids jobs, let's fund them. Right. Let's fund these programs. And like I say, a $900 million budget in Tallahassee, we should have programs. There should be no kids. There shouldn't be 14,000 kids that need to eat, need to go hungry because school's closed.
Well, that, to me, kids don't know what they want. It's mm-hmm. like you're trying to prepare them for something that, like, hey, we're going to teach you all this stuff. Well, what if they don't even, to me, that's the biggest thing. What if that's not their interest? then of course they're not going to devote.
Well, we're really lucky in Tallahassee. We got some really great, schools like Lively and TCC that have so many programs that you don't have to go to college. You go to these programs and do these trainings to be truck drivers and HVAC people and mechanics. So many programs.
Right.
And they're full. You always hear that a lot of people there. Well, those are paths that kids don't get told they can do. And I think you're right. We need to steer people towards those jobs because there's plenty of them. You hear stories. I've heard many stories about how plumbers and carpenters, and the average age is like 50 something years old. I mean, when these people leave the business, there's going to be nobody in those professions. Yet you don't even need a college degree to be a plumber or an HVAC person. You can make a pretty good living. I don't know if you ever had your air conditioner fixed or your plumbing fixed, but it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But they earn every nickel of that because it's a skill. And so we need to direct funds that'll fund these programs so the kids can be involved. You're absolutely right. You don't have to go to college, but when people feel like there's nothing left,
right,
at 13 and 14 years old, they're going to go right to crime and drugs and
to me, the number one
gangs.
excuse is if you're working at McDonald's making minimum wage, probably not, ecstatic about your life, waking up like, hey, I make $9 an hour at McDonald's. But you're right. Like access to these programs and sort of letting them know, hey, no, there is a way out. Hey, you don't have to just keep working the same minimum wage job. And, because it gets in a cycle where you get behind. And there's scholarships and there's money out there that they'll give you to go to school and do these things. But you have to be the person committed. There's still some personal responsibility in people's lives. And, there's a Republican coming out in me, but there is personal responsibility. And I know for a fact, working where I work, there's hundreds of jobs for people. But if you don't want it, you're not going to want it. But if you want a job, I get you a job tomorrow. That's what I tell people all the time. If you want a job, I get you a job tomorrow. But you got to show me that you're willing to work for me first before I'm going to put my name on you and call somebody up. Yeah. I know 100 people by their first name. I can call up and say, hey, John, I got a guy who needs a job. Can you help him out? But I'm not going to go, this guy just came to me yesterday and says he needs a job. That's not how you earn a job. And there they are as adults thinking that they just get a job making $15 an hour. You still need to have some sort of learning curve. I think there's nothing wrong with starting at minimum wage and having a job. I did. I did. I was putting pipes in a box and shipping them off to people. I worked for a pipe fitting company. I remember it was in their garage, in their basement. That was my job in the neighborhood, just helping out, 2 days a week after school, whatever it was. You never thought about saying, you know what, this stinks. Hell, we were so happy to have a job. Nowadays, kids are just not happy having a job. They want more. Yeah. They want more. And yet there's plenty of companies out there. My daughter has got a job at 14 working at Publix, making $9 something an hour as a cart girl and, as a bagger. Wow. Yeah. So she took off about a month and now she's ready to go back to Publix and they're going to they're paying like $2 more an hour to work in this dangerous time or whatever it is. But those are companies that'll do that. There are companies that'll do that. My company did that. The Kearney Center paid us all more money to go to work. And, and that's a great gesture because they recognize that you're I don't want to say risking, but there's a danger out there. But, I think we have a lot of issues we need to address. And some of it can be really solved by just teaching our kids that, there's nothing wrong with starting out in a crappy job, if you will. There is such a word, but a low paying job. Well, my favorite thing was always, starting out low, if you say in the medical field, the entry level job would be like a CNA or MA and then an LPN, RN, nurse, and then you go up from there. And I can always tell every single doctor or PA or ARMP above me that I've worked with that was also a nurse. Because they understand what I'm doing. Sure. They go, oh, okay, I understand what you're doing. And to me, that makes a better leader. Someone who did do the under job and work their way up. They understand that more, which even sounds like your political background or you're, where you're coming from politically. Is you're saying, hey, I came from down here. I've seen this and I've worked my way up through the system. And I'm coming as a citizen of the community who sees problems.
Well, you work for me. You saw me. I mean, I would tell people I'm a player's coach. I'm not the guy that's going to go point and say, go get that table clean. I'm going to grab a towel and go, hey, come on, let's get this table clean so we can turn it real quick. Or jump on the line on a Friday night and help cook because their ticket times are 15 minutes. Those types of things. Those are what true leaders do. They're not afraid to do those things. I've always been a player's coach kind of guy. And I think someone in the restaurant business can really help on a city government level. Why? Because number one, the budget. Nobody saves pennies more than a restaurant guy.
That's a thin budget.
You're trying to save. I could remember looking at invoices and invoices from a linen company and going, wait a minute, I could save a nickel here or a penny here. And that's what you did. You looked for nickels. And when you have a $900 million budget, I know you can find dollars, not just nickels. Right. Probably tens of thousands of dollars that are being wasted. And I'm from a place where I used to look for nickels to try and save, so that I could either increase my payroll and hire another person or order more product or whatever it was. That's the way you made money. That's the way you made a bonus. Mm-hmm. So the way I see it on the city commission level is, if I can help get our budget in line and help spend money effectively, then my bonus will be getting elected again if I was to run again, those kinds of things. But nobody does it alone. Politicians, I made a post today on Facebook. No politician is going to be doing anything alone. If we do anything for the city of Tallahassee or improve anything in the city of Tallahassee, it's going to be because people like you and people in the community, small business owners, nonprofit, the nonprofit world, those are the ones who are going to buy into what we're saying and do the things that we're saying. We're saying to businesses, hey, hire someone who's coming out of jail. Hire someone who you normally wouldn't hire. Give them a shot. We're going to tell nonprofits, we're going to give you more money, but you use it to reach more people. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things. And I think all that works as a big old giant team. And I really do believe that. I'm not going to take credit for nothing. It's going to be Tallahassee's credit, and it's going to be their decision. The old saying, you get what you pay for, you get what you elect too,
Mm-hmm. I saw when I was looking into, definition of city commission and all that, I actually followed the links, and there was a talgov.com. It listed the meetings, it listed the agenda, what the discussions were, the planned proposals. And, it seemed like an open invite, people that want to come and I guess participate or I guess hear what's going on about these proposals.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to a meeting, but the argument is that the meetings are 4:00 or they start at 4, and a lot of people can't make it because they're working. But they're also online, on TV, and you can tune in there. And they also, on records. You can go to the Tallahassee Facebook page and see.
And you talk about these things we're talking about. Right. You talk about city development as far as crime or the park or whatever.
Well, I would argue they don't talk about crime enough. I would argue that every agenda, to me, should have crime on it. We should be talking about crime until we're not number one in crime anymore. And we don't do that. To me, the number one issue in our city is crime. And until we as a city commission, the city commission treats it as the number one issue, we're never going to solve it. Yeah. It's the number one issue in our city, and we should treat it that way. We should give the city of Tallahassee Police Department everything they need, all the tools they need, the money they need to make an impact, the facility they need. Here we are. We're still, debating. I think it's now a 3-year plan. Well, they were talking about a police department 10 years ago. So here we are. We're still going to wait another 3 years to have a new police department. But that's shameful, But they've also decided to build a new firehouse. That firehouse the city of Tallahassee was told that firehouse was needed on that area of town for 20 years. We got to start having some people that move, that act, not just talk about all these great little things that we want to do. Mm-hmm. It really is a team deal, and the community is definitely more involved than they ever have. I mean, this commission, I will admit, is promised more transparency, and I believe they've delivered. They go to different spots of town to hold meetings, which is great. I don't know what goes on in their little meetings, personal, when they meet with people, but they all have office hours. They all have offices. Heck, they've already admitted they all treat their job like a full-time job. It's a part-time job. I'm going to treat it as a part-time job. My full-time job is at the homeless shelter. I'll be the only city commissioner in the entire country that works at a homeless shelter. And I think that's good. There's no one going to be more accessible as a politician than I.
Yeah.
You could come work with me every single day or whenever you want to serve lunch to the homeless. After we're done, we'll sit down and talk about your issue, and then I'll go to City Hall at 3:00 and fight for you. There's no one that's going to be more accessible than me.
Right.
And that's my plan. That's what I propose to be, is accessible. And I tell people I'm the most unique candidate in the history of Tallahassee. Working at the homeless shelter in the poorest zip code in the city. I also live in a part of town that has no representation on the city commission. There is no representation in the northeast part of town. And that's why our city commission should be districted. But who's gonna change it? Somebody new. Someone new is gonna have to go over there and say, I want to change the charter and have city seats be district. That just only makes sense. Why should the county be district, but the city not be district? That makes no sense. The mayor should be at large, and they should run for the entire city. But each section of town should have their own commissioner. Just common sense.
Makes sense.
Excuse me. So, but those are the types of things that's going to take new, bold leadership to do. It's not going to take the same old status quo to do that.
That's why I reached out to you, because like I said, my experience with working at the Appalachian Center, the mental health facility I worked at, was I was like, oh, okay, this guy knows what's up. Like he's in the community, like he's working at the Kearney Center. I know he's going to recognize some of these same issues, and on the level that I see him as somebody who works with the community.
Well, look, I ran in 2018, and mental health was a topic of every single candidate who ran for office. Here we are 2 years later. What's changed? What's changed in the mental health field?
A Taco Bell burnt down, I think.
I mean, but that's the thing. Nothing's changed. So we talked about addressing it. All these politicians, all these people that got elected talked about it. Nothing changed. What changed about crime? Nothing. We're still number one.
Yeah.
What this COVID-19 outbreak is going to do for Tallahassee, I think, is give us a really big reset button. Let's start fresh. Let's see what we can do to build this economy up. Let's see what we can do to help small business. Let's see what we can do to help wages. Let's see what we can do to help the school system, because we've learned a huge amount. I think we've learned a huge amount to know that because school closed, 14,000 kids can't eat. That is shocking. That is shocking. That is just crazy to try and move 300 people into hotels who are homeless to try and protect them. That's a huge number. We shouldn't have that big a number. So hopefully we readdress those things. But the big reset is going to be, let's put somebody brand new in office. There's nothing going to be better than resetting the city hall than having someone brand new. So that's what I hope.
So I got one more to bring up for you.
Yep.
And I'm going to tie a few things together with this. You mentioned reinstating, you used it as an example, the DARE program. And you said that sort of kind of gets chuckled at when people bring that up. Me being a nurse, and it's a up and coming topic. What do you think about marijuana as far as prescription only, recreational, stimulating the economy, local businesses buying licenses to sell it? I mean, to me, I have a card registered. It's something I ended up studying, because when I was a nurse, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is what? This is medical. Okay, let's figure this out. What's going on here? And looked into it, did all the science and stuff. And to me, I come out on the other side, and that sort of gives people that sort of scoff at DARE, I think, because, you were raised going through DARE program, and a lot of that now, the teachings were, one of the things were, dope and weed bad. Well, how bad is it if it's medical?
Right.
So you kind of go, well,
maybe we restructure that. But then, like you said, is it a left and right issue? Is there the Christian versus non-Christian view? Because Christians obviously typically fight against, marijuana, stuff like that. So you sort of have like that party difference. But from my perspective, I feel like it's obviously a positive movement, even as far as economy and stuff like that. And, all kinds of numbers and statistics you can look at for both sides.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I'll say this. The DARE program is not strictly about drugs anymore. It's about so much more that elementary school kids need to hear. And there is actually there are schools in this country that do DARE, even in Florida, and are successful at it. Mm-hmm. It's not all about drugs anymore. It's totally different.
Okay.
Bullying, cyberbullying, safety on the internet, all different kinds of things that they address now. It's not just about drugs anymore. And that's why I think that's so important, because our kids have changed. As far as my opinion on medical marijuana or legalizing marijuana, I would say I would defer to the sheriff and the chief of police, who I've both heard speak about it, and they both said they wouldn't want marijuana to be legal. They're the professionals. However, I've talked to police friends of mine who all say how difficult it is currently to figure out what's medical, what's legal, what's illegal. And it sounds like it's going to be a really difficult thing to figure out to make all the sides happy.
Right.
But I also...
So it almost made it harder being medical, because it created this sort of gray area of, well, before it was either was wrong or right.
It seems that way. So it almost has to be treated like a open container kind of thing.
Well, to me, then
the only way
I see money going into that. Then, like, if you got to, you pull someone over, they've got it, then you got to go to court. There's court fees. There's all of a sudden it's costing taxpayers money. He's gone to jail. We don't even know if it's weed.
But I will tell you this. I will say that we need to stop incarcerating people for tiny crimes of having a joint in their car. I mean, we got people in jail that are in jail that shouldn't be in jail.
So you maybe like the decriminalized route. Maybe pay a fee. Here's a ticket.
And I think
but
that's
I'm not going to take it to jail.
Well, that's the direction I think they're going anyway. Speaking to police officers, that's the way it's going to go anyway.
And a few counties, I believe, do that.
It's going to be a fine, right? It's going to be a fine. It's going to be something like that. And I'm okay with that. It just, what happens is, I think once it becomes a legal drug, I've listened to the sheriff and the police chief say that the sheriff thinks it's a gateway drug to other drugs.
That guy's never smoked weed.
Yeah, right. But he's a professional, and I would defer to him. But I don't know enough about that. But what I do know is the process, from what I understand, and you could correct me, but if as long as I pay a fee of $400, I could probably get a card myself. And I think that's wrong. Well, and I think that's why we have an opioid crisis in this country, is because doctors prescribe pain pills when people don't really need pain pills. And I go back to a time where I cut my finger and I had to get stitches, and the doctor wrote out a prescription for OxyContin. And I'm like, I don't need OxyContin. I'll just take a pill, aspirin. Whatever happened to taking an aspirin when you get home? But what happens is doctors, I would say, willy-nilly write prescriptions for opioids, and people take them, and then they get addicted to them. And you look behind the counter of any Walgreens or CVS, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of bags of drugs. There's a much, again, I'm running for city commissioner, but there's a much bigger issue with drug problems than marijuana. You follow what I'm saying?
I would agree with that.
I would think there's
for
a much
sure.
bigger issue.
For sure. Part of my job on the psych unit was I ran the detox unit for 8 months. So help people come off alcohol, drugs, pills. They would come to us, messed up or on drugs. And it has no face. It has no color. It has no race. It has no creed. It's just a problem.
Well, the other issue with drug use for me, again, I just think of things in a really bigger way. How do poor people afford drugs? How do they afford to be addicted to drugs? You talk about
I can tell you how.
poor communities
Yeah.
And how you always hear about drug use and there's a problem, we got to clean it up. Well, how does it get to that point?
Well, it goes back to, because probably something I don't talk about was I had an issue with addiction, and when I heard about, people would tell you, oh, it's a dopamine thing. Oh, it's well, what's the real issue behind addiction? Why? Then they started looking at people, I think it was in the Vietnam War, would go to Vietnam and do opium and all the different things. And they come back. And apparently the statistics show that most people got clean when they came back. They talk about, oh yeah, we have addicts that come back, but it was actually, they didn't say the other side of that was that most of them stopped. And then they do the lab rat test, they give the lab rat cocaine or opium or something, and he always goes over and keeps hitting the button. Well, a scientist came along and went, maybe it's because he's in a box. And everyone was like, oh, well, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So they reconstructed a living habitat for rats, and it never used it. And like you talk about being in a poor community, being held down, feeling like there's no escape, feeling like there's no way to go, that goes to crime and drugs, because you do want to escape. You do want to get out of there. And I can verify drugs do that. There are wrong drugs and bad drugs that do that. It has its toll on you. And they're showing a lot of that as situational, like you were saying. So let's solve that problem.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about talk and promises, and how, these community leaders and clergymen get in front of the TV cameras after a big crime thing comes out, and they go, we want justice. We want to improve our community. It's going to take all of us. And then nothing happens. But who's willing to go into those neighborhoods and really fix it? Ask a police officer. They know where all the drug houses are. They know where all the drugs are. But yet 2 years later, they still know where those places are. So what are we actually doing to fix it? And that's the difficult thing. Who's going to say, no, we're not going to just talk about it anymore. We're actually going to go do it.
We're going to fund them.
So I want to plan.
Give them personnel.
Right. I want to plan.
Give them the things they need.
Whatever it is. And I argue that we have plenty of community leaders who are willing to step up and lead this fight. I know we do, because I work with a lot of them. A lot of them come to the Kearney Center. A lot of them I reach out to. There's plenty of community leaders that want to solve the problem in these communities.
And on a local level, yeah, that's it. Because I look at it, like I said, nationally, I look at the education system. You're not going to fix that in Tallahassee. You're not going to fix the education system.
Right.
You're going to provide outlets. You're going to provide organizations. You're going to provide paths, for them to go. But
when school gets back in session in Tallahassee, if the superintendent and the school board doesn't address the fact that 14,000 kids can't eat unless there's school, what good was it?
Right.
If they don't address that, I don't even know how to address it. If they don't address the fact that we had to pull up Wi-Fi buses in poor communities because no one had internet, and our city commission doesn't make decisions to make some kind of broadband, or maybe even make cable one of our utilities, whatever. Again, thinking outside the box, thinking something bigger. Why don't we have broadband in our community through our utilities? Why doesn't everybody have broadband? We have there were neighborhoods. I mean, are you shocked? I'm shocked. There are neighborhoods in this town that don't have internet. And then when the school kids had to go online to learn, they couldn't. I mean, I think that's shocking. And again, I go back to that $900 million budget. What the hell are we doing with that money? That's what I want to know.
Right.
What we're doing is making promises and building $60 million roads, through FAMU, a FAMU Way extension that was $60 million with pavers that were triple layered, so they looked really pretty. We're building buildings and using money to put pools on top of hotels. I mean, those are the types of things that we're doing with money that makes someone like me want to go, no way, someone's got to put a stop to this. And that's, again, one of the reasons I'm running is to put a stop to this endless cycle of just promises and press conferences and community meetings. We love to host community meetings. But what happens after that meeting? It seems to me nothing. It seems to me nothing happens. Except when it's a community meeting about the police station and they and the voices that speak the loudest shut down the entire project of building a police station. And we had to start all over again. But the reality is we need a police station. We need a police station 5 years ago, not 3 years from now. And so we're still not solving anything. We're just talking about it. Mm-hmm. So who's going to act? Who's going to go, no, it's unacceptable. I want a police station in 1 year. That's it. We got plenty of developer friends in the city. City has plenty of developer friends. We can get that done.
Yeah.
But people don't like to hear somebody talk that way. And I think somebody needs to start talking that way. Someone needs to say, you work for me. And you work for the city, and you need to make sure that you work for the people. The people want this. Mm-hmm. I went to commission meetings where an entire neighborhood went to the city commission meeting wearing red shirts saying, don't tear down these trees and build in our neighborhood. And they did it anyway. They didn't listen to the people. They didn't care about the people. Mm-hmm. But, somebody made money on that deal, and it wasn't the residents. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that have to stop. The only way you're going to do that is electing somebody new and not connected. And that's what I offer at Tallahassee.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it all.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely lines up with what I think. This may be another random side question, but are you familiar with universal basic income? You familiar with that term at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that term. I'm not.
Do you feel like that maybe a step up from?
You say that people need to get a certain income by the government.
Basically.
Again, I go back to personal responsibility and starting from the bottom. I just think people need to earn their keep and earn their living.
I think it makes somebody stronger to have to fight through that.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that giving someone a stimulus check during this crisis was a good idea, but it certainly made a Republican president not look so Republican, didn't it? So that's pretty weird. I think people just who care about people and who need to make the right decisions will make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. So it probably was a good call to give people a little bit of a break. I know people that needed that money. I know people that really needed that money. Mm-hmm. Hell, I work for a living and needed that money. To be honest, if anybody said I didn't need that money, they're lying to you. Who got it? Because you got it at a certain income. But I don't make a lot of money. I live paycheck to paycheck like everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I work in a nonprofit area, mm-hmm. and we struggle for funding every single year. But my pay doesn't really matter because I took the job at what it was paid. That again, That goes right back to what we're saying about people. Take a job that what you think you're worth, and then if that's not the job for you, then you move on and get something else that's higher paying. But you need to learn skills along the way that make you worthy of a raise. Mm-hmm. And flipping fries your whole life, guess what? You're going to make minimum wage flipping fries your whole life. Mm-hmm. If you have no desire to learn to run the cash register or manage a shift, you're not going to make more money. And those are Again, that's what my daughter, she's a cart girl and a bagger. And if she wants to be a cashier and make more money, guess what? She's got to be the best bagger and the best cart person and show up on work on time and show up in her uniform. And then she'll get promoted to that if she wants it. Mm-hmm. Again, if you want it, the jobs are there. I tell people that all the time at the Kearney Center. There are plenty of jobs. We got a stack this high of jobs, a book that sits on the counter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing here? But it goes back to personal responsibility. If we as a government, again, this is a bigger issue than just Tallahassee, but if we as a government are going to pay people more money to stay away from a job, then they're going to stay away from a job. Unemployment is sometimes more than minimum wage. Disability is more than minimum wage. Mm-hmm. I knew a lady at the Kearney Center one time. She got a job. I said, "How'd the job go? How'd the job interview go?" She goes, "Well, they were going to pay me $10 an hour, and I make more not working." Mm-hmm. So it wasn't worth her time to get a job because it was going to pay less money than she was getting in benefits. Mm-hmm. That's the bigger problem. Those are the bigger issues in America. But no one is willing to fight because you have people who just, again, use that as a promise and a crutch to get votes. And that's a shame. That's really, again, that's way bigger than what we're talking about here on the city level. But it's a shame that we have politicians that believe that and act that way. That their next vote is more important than actually helping somebody. And that's not my style. My style is helping somebody first. And, I'm only running for office because I really think that's the next step for me. I really think that's the next thing in my life that's going to allow me to reach more people. I talk about giving funding to organizations so they can reach more people. This is my way I'm going to be able to reach more people if I'm a city commissioner. I reach a lot of people what I do and the things I'm involved in, but I know if I'm a city commissioner, I can actually reach more people and touch more lives. And that to me is important.
Sounds great. Hopefully you can do that.
We'll see what happens.
Sounds good. It was great having you here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it very much.
Hopefully we can get this out for everyone to check out.
Show. That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's it. You covered it all, man. We covered a lot.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Thanks.
No problem.
BillSchack.com.
There we go.
Check it out.
All right.
Thanks.